This is where I wanted to show you how you need to be careful. This is something that as biologists you'll probably do often. So you see over here a list of SNPs, right? And you see a list of entries, which in this case is, remember I said a list can contain anything. It can contain a number first and then a letter, and then it can even contain another list or a dictionary, which you haven't. It can contain booleans, it can contain anything. So here it contains a kind of a complex string, which is separated by semicolons. But they all, if you look at it carefully, you will see they all kind of have the same format, except for the first one, which probably is the heading of all of this. So if you look at it, you will see ID, and you will see 1, 2, 3, you see SNP, and you see that looks like a RS number for SNP. Position, that looks like it could be a position, and then gene, that looks like gene names. Okay, so this is something that you will do often. So you would say, for example, for SNP in SNPs, for entry in entries, if the entry, now this part is important because there might be things that you want to skip. So in this case, for example, you want to skip, you don't want it to read this. You don't want this to be compared to check for position in here. So you want to say, first skip any entries that, and you look for a specific thing that you can skip it on. So you know that this, for example, will never start with ID because this is always a number. So you could say, if it starts with that, or you could say if SNP in entry, the name SNP, or the name position, or any of these words, and skip it on that. And then it says here, if the SNP is in entry, right? So this is your entire entry. This is an entire, so it's going to look for this in this entire thing, just to see if it's in there. Then it's going to print SNP and print entry. Now look again, look at the indentation. For loop has an indentation, so the next line has to start with indentation. Then the if statement, and then you continue. Right, so this is underneath this because it will just this doesn't need to go underneath another indentation because it's basically just going to you wanted to start at the start and you just wanted to continue with this first one, to skip this first one. Continue means to skip, if you remember, and then it wants it to just go to the SNP and check if it's in the entries. So if we look at this, for example, you always need to put checks. We talked about this before. You need to put checks in there to make sure that your script is doing exactly what you think it's doing. And like I said before, test it on a small file. So you might want to make this smaller if this is a huge list. You might want to close the list over there and first check if it's doing the right thing over there, comment the rest out. But you want to check if it's doing. And one of the things that you might want to do at the beginning is to print out as much as possible to see if you're getting what you think you're getting. And I'm showing this because if you look at this example, you will see it came to RS016 and it didn't print anything for RS016 because remember you said print the SNP if it's in there and the entry. So if it didn't print this, then it means that this SNP was not found in here. So the first SNP that was found was this RS222. It went through this and it saw, okay, it's got RS222. Oh, that one is in there. So I said print SNP and print entry. So it printed the SNP and it printed the entry. But now look at this one. It said RS333, and luckily we said print entry as well because you would have thought that this SNP is in this entries, but actually because you use in and 333 is in this big entry, it printed that and it recognized, because it's true, it is in there. So in this instance, it would be better to make sure that you, and I'm going to show you an example to make sure that these entries are actually separated from one another, and that you don't use in, but you use equivalent to. So the two equal signs that says that it must be an exact, it must be equivalent to or clone of that or something. But you can't use just in, because in can produce errors like that. So just be careful. This is maybe a little more high level, but it shouldn't be, because we have done all of this. So you can have a look at this. This would be a better example. So the first part stay the same for snip in snips, for entry in entries. If entry starts with ID, skip it or continue. What I then did was I said, take this entry, right? So in the first one that it's going to hold is not going to be this one, because we told it to skip it. It's going to be this one. And I'm saying, create a new variable name called column. You could call it item, whatever you want, and split it on this value over here, the colon. And then in our case, the first element, because it starts at 0, so 0, this element would be the element that we want to store in the column, because we only wanted to really check whether this and this matches. Okay, so you're going to hold that in there as opposed to holding this whole thing. You just want this. Now again, this you could have done in one line. You could have, you could have just put split it and choose the first one. But yeah, just not to confuse you, I'm just showing it split up into different lines like that. So now you can say, you could have called this something more intuitive, maybe snip in entry. You could have made this snip in entry, so that it's maybe more intuitive to you. And then obviously, and you could have said immediately 1, and then here you would just say if snip is equal to snip in entry. Okay, so you could have done it like that. And then obviously you want to see if it's going to print out the snip and the entry. Now again, look, you can print snip in entry also here if you want to. Right, so you could print snip in entry. Let's see how that works. But you can see here that it's printing only this one, because only that one is correct, because you've split it. Okay, so you want to make sure, and because we said snip and snip in entry, you can see it's the same thing, and then it's printing the original entry. Now if you just check the original, you will see that this should also give you the same result, but obviously here we didn't say that it needs to, we didn't create another variable name, so it's just printing snip and entry. But I mean, this is just an example to show you how you need to carefully think about what your script is doing, and make sure that you put checkpoints in place when you're printing, to make sure, because the script can run and you think that you celebrate and you think it's working. So it must be accurate, but you have to put checks in there to make sure that it is always accurate. Even if you have to add fake entries into there to make sure that it's not catching fake entries, make sure that you do your due diligence.